Hello everyone. Welcome to our animated philosophy series, where we explore timeless concepts in a modern context. In today's discussion, we'll dive into one of the most intriguing intersections in modern philosophy, the relationship between Husserl's phenomenology and existentialist thinkers like Heidegger and Sartre. Both phenomenology and existentialism are deeply concerned with human experience, but they approach this from slightly different angles. As we walk through this, we'll also look at some practical examples, particularly the feeling of alienation in modern society, to see how these philosophical ideas show up in the real world. So let's get started. To set the stage, let's first think about phenomenology, which at its core is the study of conscious experience. Husserl, the founder of this school, was deeply focused on how things appear to us through our lived experiences, rather than how they exist in some objective, external reality. For Husserl, subjective experience is central. He wanted to understand how we, as conscious beings, experience the world. His famous catchphrase was "back to the things themselves." This didn't mean back to the things out there in the world, but rather back to how things appear to our consciousness. His project was to peel back the layers of preconceived notions and assumptions to get at the pure experience of phenomena. Now, what does that have to do with existentialism? Let's take a step back here. Existentialism is a philosophical movement that wrestles with some of the big questions. What does it mean to be human? How do we find meaning in a seemingly indifferent world? Thinkers like Martin Heidegger and Jean-Paul Sartre took these questions head on, but they wouldn't have gotten there without being influenced by Husserl's phenomenology. For Heidegger, who studied under Husserl, phenomenology became a tool to understand being itself. Heidegger was less concerned with how we experience the world in a cognitive sense and more interested in the deep, fundamental question of what it means to exist. His most famous work, Being in Time, takes Husserl's method and applies it to our being in the world, a central existentialist concept that refers to the way we're always embedded in a world of relationships, meanings, and responsibilities. Heidegger wasn't just interested in abstract, philosophical questions about human nature. He wanted to explore how we, as individuals, navigate the tension between our finitude that is our mortality and our freedom, or our choices. This brings us to Sartre, who takes Heidegger's existential concerns and pushes them further into the realm of human freedom and responsibility. Sartre's famous claim that existence precedes essence is, at its core, an existentialist extension of Husserl's phenomenological approach. Sartre is essentially saying that there's no predefined meaning to human life. Instead, we create meaning through our choices and actions. Like Husserl, Sartre begins with subjective experience. But where Husserl focuses on describing the structures of consciousness, Sartre is more concerned with the radical freedom we experience in every moment of decision-making. Let's pause here for a moment to reflect on a practical example, one that many of us might relate to, the feeling of alienation. In the modern world, especially with the rise of technology, many people report feeling disconnected from themselves, their work, or even from other people. This feeling of alienation is a key existentialist theme, and phenomenology offers us a way to understand it. From a phenomenological perspective, alienation can be described as a breakdown in how we experience our world. For example, think about how, in a hyper-connected digital society, we often feel more isolated despite being constantly online. The experience of checking your phone compulsively, feeling detached from meaningful relationships, or simply losing touch with the world around you, that's a form of alienation. One that existentialists like Sartre and Heidegger would argue arises from the tension between our freedom and the structures imposed on us by society. Heidegger, in particular, would say that modern society often pulls us away from authentic existence. We get caught up in what he calls das Man, or the way we conform to societal norms and lose ourselves in the expectations of others. This leads to a kind of existential anxiety or angst, where we realize that our lives are not truly our own. In moments of alienation, we become aware of our detachment from what really matters, which in turn forces us to confront the fact that we are finite beings responsible for our choices. This feeling of alienation or disconnection is not just a vague emotional state, it's a direct reflection of existentialist concerns about the human condition. Sartre might say that this alienation happens when we try to deny our radical freedom. We want to conform to certain roles, like being the perfect employee or the ideal citizen, and in doing so, we avoid the terrifying freedom we actually possess. This leads us to bad faith, a concept Sartre uses to describe the ways we deceive ourselves into thinking we don't have freedom, when in reality we always do. Here, we can see how phenomenology helps us understand existentialist themes in practical, real-world situations. By focusing on the structures of experience, Phenomenology provides the tools to dissect how and why we feel alienated. Existentialism then takes this insight and links it to the broader questions of meaning, freedom, and responsibility. So, in summary, Husserl's Phenomenology, with its laser focus on subjective experience, laid the groundwork for existentialist thinkers like Heidegger and Sartre to explore the human condition in its raw, unfiltered state. By examining how we experience the world, whether through moments of alienation, angst, or joy, Phenomenology equips existentialists with a method for delving into the existential dilemmas we all face. Who am I? Why am I here? How should I live? Both schools of thought continue to be highly relevant today, especially in a world that often seems to prize efficiency and conformity over authenticity and meaning. The questions these philosophers asked about freedom, alienation, and the search for purpose remain as urgent and compelling as ever. Thank you for learning with us. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more insights into similar echoes.